Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's live town hall meeting being hosted here in Douglas County. We'd like to welcome all of you who showed up in person and the dozens of you already online and on the phone. Tonight's live town hall topic is based on what we are hearing from you, our citizens. We've been getting feedback from many of you about short-term rentals, like those advertised on VRBO and Airbnb. What are the rules in Douglas County? What should those rules be? That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We will also get your thoughts about 2 polling questions, so make sure you stay on the line so you can answer those questions. We want to make sure we get your feedback. Commissioner Layden will tell you a little bit about the format for tonight's call.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. As Commissioner Thomas said, tonight we're talking about a topic that you brought to us. I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this might be the 37th live town hall that we've done in the last year and a half. So we continue to say that citizen engagement is the heartbeat of effective government. We really believe that citizens are the most important aspect of what we do. You're our bosses, not the other way around. Short-term rentals are important, and as this topic has come forward to me and certainly others, I'm constantly balancing the issue of private property rights, honoring the ability of citizens to do with their properties what they deem right and appropriate for them, with the other issue of you don't want increased traffic, noise, violation of laws, potential fire danger, and other issues associated with that private use. So that constant balancing is something that I'm going to be listening forward to tonight as folks ring in. So we do have our staff planning experts here to answer questions about renting homes to vacationers or others for short-term stays and how we want to address that in Douglas County. Before we begin, I would like to take just a moment to tell you about the format for tonight's call. We want this to be very interactive, so if you would like to ask a question, press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you will be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. Once the operator notes your information, you will be returned to the call and can listen to the conversation until it's your turn. So press *3 on your keypad to ask a question or to provide a comment. We know everyone has lots of questions, and we will get to those very soon. But first, I would like to turn the call over to Commissioner Teal.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. Like my fellow commissioners mentioned, we're here tonight talking about a new topic we've been hearing a lot about. For context, we are talking about rentals of less than 30 days. A time frame that is actually defined by state law. I also want to let you know we are talking about areas in the unincorporated Douglas County, not really the municipalities. For other areas, you may have rules on this topic from your own municipality, HOA, or planning development. So based on your feedback, let's start to unpack this topic. Again, if you're joining us on the phone, please press *3 to ask a question or provide a comment. If you would like to participate online, you can visit douglas.co.us/town hall. Roger, kick us off.
All right. Thank you, commissioners. Again, as a reminder, if you're on the phone and would like to ask a question or provide the commissioners a comment, press *3. And you'll be transferred to an operator who will take down some basic information. And if you are participating online, you can visit douglas.co.us/town hall and provide comments there. So we'll jump right into the questions, starting with one that came in online. Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, Roger. Let's begin with this question that did come in online. Travis wants to know, what is a short-term rental and how would I know if it's allowed where I live?
And Commissioner, I'll take that. This is Steve Koster. And a short-term rental is any lease that is for a period of less than 30 days, and that is based on the statutory requirement that a lodging tax or sales tax be collected for stays that are shorter than that. So that's what our county process is regulated with. And to know if it's allowed where you live, you can really reach out to our planning department and find out what your zoning is, and we can take a look at that. So I will turn that over to Commissioner Layden now.
Great. Thanks so much, Steve. So it looks like we do have a question on the phone. Caller, if you want to just indicate your name and what your question is.
All right, Kelly, you're up. Go ahead.
Hello. I am a resident here in Parker and have been for 8 years, and I really do enjoy my neighborhood. And bringing in Airbnbs and VRBOs makes a neighborhood feel less safe. The inconsistency of the people renting is not good for the environment that you think that your neighborhood holds. I had an experience in my cul-de-sac of our neighbor renting out bedrooms nightly, so we had new people in every night, and that was very uncomforting to me and my family.
Thanks for that, Kelly. Who would like to take that? Did you have a question for us, Kelly, or was that more just sharing your perspective?
Yeah, that was just more sharing my perspective. We had it shut down in our neighborhood that I live in because we started.
Kelly, we might have lost you, but I think the gist of your question was about public safety and how short-term rentals can impact the look and feel when it comes to safety in a neighborhood. Who would like to take that?
Sure. This is Michael Carey. I'm the zoning compliance manager for the county. So typically when we get complaints about short-term rentals, it is about safety issues, traffic, noise, strangers coming and going, all times of day and night. Currently in most zone districts of the county, short-term rentals currently are not allowed because it's not viewed as a residential use. It's viewed as a lodging use. We do have some bed and breakfasts that are allowed within certain zone districts. And then also we do have minimal PDs that allow for lodging or short-term rentals within residential districts. But in our straight zoning categories, short-term rentals are currently not allowed.
Thanks for that, Michael. We have looks like another question. I'm sorry, Commissioner Thomas.
So is there another phone call?
Okay, we're following our amazing director, Roger, in the background.
I thought Commissioner Thomas wanted to chime in. We have a question coming from Jenny. Go ahead, Jenny, you're live.
Hi. Hi, this is Jenny. I actually didn't have a question. I had a comment. Is that okay?
Yes.
So yeah, I just wanted to weigh in. I'm a real estate agent here in Douglas County, and I also own rentals and Airbnbs as well. So I have a lot of experience with that. I'm in Castle Rock where it is allowed. And, the one thing that I wanted to say is the buyers right now are having a really hard time, owner-occupant buyers and especially first-time home buyers, just getting into a home and purchasing a home because the market is so crazy competitive and there's a lot of cash buyers coming in. So my only concern is if that would, allowing Airbnbs in other parts of Douglas County, would that make it harder on these buyers? On the other side, I do own rentals and, I like, I think it should be allowed to an extent. So my thought was if it could be allowed to only owner occupants or, allowed with limitations like that to kind of balance it out. But I really do think that it allows these home buyers to be able to purchase and then rent like their basement out, for instance. And then that a lot of times what I'm seeing is it's covering their mortgage like completely. And so it really allows people who weren't allowed to purchase homes before. And then, if they are allowed to buy a home that is set up with a kitchen in the basement or something like that, then it allows them to actually be able to afford a home when they never were able to before. So I do think that it's a good thing and I'm definitely in favor of it because of that. And can I say one more thing?
Sure.
People speaking about like the safety issues and, things, problems that short-term rentals could have because of these platforms like Airbnb and VRBO. I have a couple Airbnbs And we haven't had any issues. We have more issues with long-term tenants than we do Airbnb, and I think it's because Airbnb has a review system, and so you review who stays there and they review you, and we have to keep our short-term rentals really nice because otherwise we won't get it rented out or we'll get bad reviews. And so and I have a lot of contacts with other people who own short-term rentals, and just in my personal experience, people who have a short-term rental, whether it's in their basement or a standalone home, they keep that in such better condition, exterior and interior, than they would otherwise, because it does give them that extra income to do so, and because they have to kind of have high quality in order to keep it booked and make money. So, and we haven't had any safety issues. You can have that anywhere, but I really do think in general, it seems like these short-term rentals increase the value of areas and the quality of, how people keep their exterior and interior of their homes.
Well, I see Commissioner Teal walking out to connect with our in-person audience, and I hope we're able to do that. I'm just wondering if maybe there's somebody on the panel that wants to respond to those comments, because I found them intriguing to hear from a realtor with experience not only in the rental market but in selling homes on two fronts. One is the safety issue, which certainly resonates with me as one commissioner, thinking that, well, whether you're renting a home or not, you still have to comply with local public safety laws. And it sounds like there's a review system that the private sector offers that could require or at least have some measure of accountability when it comes to public safety. I don't know if that's the case or not, but interesting point. And then the other issue was raised about affordability of homes. And we often do hear about that both internally and externally to Douglas County. Tough to get into our market here. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Commissioner, I guess what I would say is, as we're looking and having these conversations, the questions about, should it be owner-occupied only, all of those kinds of things those are the kinds of input that we would need to have, as we're drafting something for the commissioners to consider. So I encourage folks to keep participating in that way and sharing those thoughts with us.
Interesting thoughts, though. Commissioner Teal, sorry to hold you up. You're getting cozy out there.
I took a seat, yeah. Well, so those of you joining on the phone or online, and for those of you here in the room who maybe haven't joined one of these before, we don't always have this kind of crowd. So thank you all for coming out. It's a cold February night out there, so definitely appreciate you guys coming in to share your views, ask your questions. And so we wanted to start off here in the audience, and I stood up at the prompting of Roger, our director here in the back, and this gentleman kind of raised his hand. So, sir, go ahead and give us your name and ask your question or share your views.
My name is Joe Yaskowik. I'm currently, we have a residence in Castle Rock. We've had previous short-term rentals. I just wanted to ask, is there any statistical data available through law enforcement that talks about the increase in potential crime, as I hear as one of the arguments stated? I guess that would be my question. Is there any statistical data on crime or heightened crime in these areas?
Cool. Michael, Steve, either one of you had that come up in your research so far?
We have not actually researched that specific topic. We have heard from some complainants that complain about short-term rentals. Yeah, we've reached out to the sheriff's department due to noise or people riding ATVs and that type of thing out on county roads for those types of disturbances, but we have not looked at any specific statistics.
And Caroline, I had Caroline reach out to Castle Rock itself, and we didn't hear any public safety concerns come back from Castle Rock that does allow it at this stage of the game. I want to go all the way to the other end of the room, please. And, sir, I'll come back to you next, I promise. But go to the other end of the room, to this gentleman, and see what question or views he has to share. Sir, could you give us your name and go ahead and ask your question?
Thank you. My name is Grant Vanderyacht. I'm a local attorney
and I'm also a former property manager. I used to manage over 2,000 properties in the Denver area. I've been exposed to a lot of criminal type of defense complaints, so people from the community often call me and ask me to respond to whatever they're dealing with. And also, I've dealt a lot with short-term rentals and long-term rentals. So I have a very long history, over 22 years of experience in this particular subject, not so much the VRBOs and that sort of thing, but in real estate generally. And I can tell you without any shadow of doubt, my law office receives far fewer complaints about short-term rentals and the criminality that is surrounding it than we do about long-term rentals. And to that point, the one thing that I would ask the commissioners to really consider is, I do evictions for a living. The biggest frustration I have is that you can get somebody out on a short-term rental immediately. So if there's any sort of complaint about criminality, they get 15 minutes to pack their stuff. Relative to long-term rentals, we're talking, the state has just adjusted the rules now. I hate to say it, but we're 3 months out. If somebody files a complaint to get a long-term tenant out, it's a minimum of 3 months to get out, and I've seen tenants string that out to years. So this is a real big opportunity for Douglas County to embrace this industry and give landlords who are struggling with long-term rentals an option. So for example, if I had a lease, which 20 years ago, I had these types of leases. They were month to month. You paid a premium to be month to month, and you got the rights to be month to month. And if that was a short-term renewable lease that had the power of you're out in 15 minutes, that would really help all of my clients across the board. And I'm strongly in favor of making it legal for people to use their property the way they want to, really. The only caveat I really have is the folks who are presenting themselves as being managers of these short-term rentals, I'm finding more problems with them than the tenants, because these tenants are putting up deposits and those deposits are vanishing. And that's because these managers are acting without a license, without any review. And for me, that's the biggest area of concern from a public safety perspective.
Thanks, sir. Roger, what do we have up next for our next segment? Hang on, sir.
All right, thank you. We have a polling question. And it's easy to participate. All you have to do is use your telephone keypad to enter the number of your response. And if you're participating online, you just click your response. And here's that question. From strongly agree to strongly disagree, please rate your agreement with this statement. I should be allowed to rent my home for short-term use. Press 1 for strongly agree, press 2 for agree, press 3 for neutral, press 4 for disagree, and press 5 for strongly agree. We'll report the results after we take a few more questions. I believe next is Commissioner Thomas has an online question. Commissioner?
Thank you, Roger. So Jenny has reached out to us and says, if this kind of rental is allowed, what are some ways we can assure that we don't become a nuisance for neighbors? Can we assure that they don't become a nuisance for neighbors?
So one way that we can ensure that they don't become a nuisance for our neighborhood is the county now has the ability to actually adopt an ordinance that would allow the county to set up a licensing program for short-term rentals. And with that ordinance, you could put in criteria that would need to be met, not only by the owner or the applicant or the management company, but also rules that the tenants would have to follow as well. And with a ordinance, you could have penalties that are issued immediately if you've got, bad players, versus you've also got the ability to amend the zoning regulations to put this in a land use category, but the enforcement process for that is much more lengthy than it would be for an ordinance.
Thank you, Michael. I think we have another phone call question. Roger?
We do. Stephen, you are live. Go ahead. phone. Stephen on the phone, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. Steve Brown here, Fire Chief, Mountain Community Fire. My biggest concern is the visitors, short-term renters, don't know the fire restrictions when they come into town, therefore creates volume traffic for our fire department to respond to fires or, let's say, abandoned campfires on some of the properties that are rentals. And yeah, that's one of my big concerns as a fire chief. And then the second concern is being unincorporated Douglas County, the ATV noise can be excessive during the summer months. I get a lot of complaints from the neighborhood about that, and also increased accidents and all, just because of the nature of visitors might not be as good at drivers on ATVs as the residents. So, two big issues. The fire issue is the biggest one, though.
So, Chief, I think you raised some really good and important issues that we certainly prioritize in Douglas County, one being wildfire mitigation and mitigating risk. Do you have any thoughts or considerations around how the private sector might be able to address some of that? Is that part of a short-term rental contract, requirements that renters do more when it comes to fire mitigation? What are your thoughts on that? You're probably the best expert to answer that. I don't know if the chief is still with us. We might have lost the chief. Well, let me just share for those in the room and those online, we will probably have more than just one live town hall on short-term rentals, and we are looking forward to inviting back the RBO, Airbnb, the fire industry, public safety, and other experts that can help inform the process. But let me go back into the gallery here. Anybody else that has a question? Sir, you've had your hand up for a while, and you've got documentation.
Yeah. My name is Keith Worley, live in Perry Park. I've done spent about 5 or 6 hours going through the Colorado revised statutes. And basically, in terms of where Douglas County has to approach these from, number one, they are by statute a public establishment. By number two, they're a business. And number three, they are a non-residential property. Okay, so statutorily, that's pretty much where you stand on how you're now going to allow public establishments and businesses in residential neighborhoods that are not zoned for them. So in other words, they're just not allowed in that zoning unless approved as part of a PUD or whatever. So basically, I would challenge you to just say, if it's in a residential zoning, no, because of just those 3 items alone. In fact, I'll give you my copy of my summary from the state statutes.
Are you sure? Okay.
I have it online.
We'll
give it to Steve or staff there, because I did the citations in there. The wildfire hazard issue, another issue is people who come to visit, like in my neighborhood, they're coming to visit in the food chain. And we had a mountain lion put down on my property, right next to where this place had been rented out short term. Small kids running around. We've got bears coming and going all the time. So, yeah, there are a lot of challenges. But to me, I think the business. By the way, there's some of my other ideas too.
You don't want to hang on to this?
Nah.
Like good ideas. Okay.
Well, take those back and give them to Steve.
Okay. How about we make a copy and get it back to you? Okay. Thank you for that. Do our expert panelists have any responses to that, the statutory or legal framework?
Well, I think what I would say to that is, as we explore this, we would have to look at all those things. We'd have to consider all of the statutory considerations around zoning and ordinances. So we're early in the process here, but we know we've got to address those things as we go through this process.
Thank you for bringing that, and we'll get that back to you. Looks like we have another question in here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a statement more than a question. Good evening. My name is Christine Fisk, and my husband Jeff, a native Coloradan, and I have resided in the Front Range for 30 years. Living on our ranch in Douglas County affords us the best of both worlds in that we're able to enjoy our rural agrarian lifestyle while still availing ourselves of all the amenities that Douglas County provides. We recently had the pleasure of working with Commissioner Thomas to protect Douglas County's rural property via Senate Bill 21084 that Governor Polis signed in April of last year. And I would like to thank Commissioner Thomas and her colleagues for all of your efforts in support of unimproved land in Douglas County. Our ranch is located in unincorporated Douglas County in a subdivision off of Toma Road called Douglas Park, which consists of 18 parcels along Elkview Road, each having a minimum of 35 acres. Most of the Douglas Park homeowners have horses, cattle, alpaca, goats, or other farm animals on their parcels. Elkview Road is a private road not maintained by the county and is gated at both ends to ensure livestock do not get out the main thoroughfares and to limit non-resident traffic and corresponding maintenance of the road. We're fortunate to have an extensive amount of wildlife like Keith was just describing in our neighborhood, to include a herd of 70-plus elk, mule deer, bobcats, bears, etc. And the Douglas Park homeowners feel fortunate to have such an abundance of wildlife and feel strongly to live in harmony with these animals. Sadly, a couple of years ago, we had a non-resident strike an elk and kill it and leave it to die, unfortunately, a painful death. Living in a rural area comes with so many benefits along with responsibilities to maintain the land. Our homeowners work hard to maintain their properties to prevent the spread of noxious weeds and manicure their pastures to prevent the spread of wildfire, a risk that has increased significantly in the past several years. We are zoned Section 3A Agricultural 1 District. I won't quote the entire paragraph, but essentially it speaks to large acreage farms, ranches, and non-urban usage. None of the principal uses as defined within the Douglas County zoning resolution allow for short-term rentals, bed and breakfast facilities, or any form of paid lodging. In the past 7 years, one former homeowner offered their home as a bed and breakfast, while another listed their home on VRBO and Airbnb. In both instances, Douglas County zoning officials shut those operations down as they're prohibited in Agricultural 1 districts. In both cases, the homeowners complied with the county, shut down their businesses, and subsequently sold their properties. The Douglas Park homeowners were extremely grateful for the quick action of the zoning office in these two instances, and we respectfully request that the regulations prohibiting these lodging uses continue to be upheld in Agricultural 1 districts. We believe that short-term renters are not aware of the fragility of the rural environment that we live in. Those of us who live here are acutely aware of the need to yield to horseback riders on the road. We're aware of and work to mitigate wildfire danger, and we are aware of the risks and likely locations of auto wildlife collisions, and we take precautions to avoid those. Allowing non-resident homeowners to open their property to those unfamiliar with these risks and the precautions our permanent residents take every day should be a concern to the county and its commitment to keep rural areas safe and remaining rural. Our homeowners in Douglas Park thank you for requesting this homeowner input as you consider any policy changes, and we firmly request that you not allow short-term rentals in unincorporated areas of the county.
Thank you for sharing that perspective, and thank you for being here. Commissioner Teal, sounds like we have some questions online or on.
It does sound like we have a phone question. Roger?
Let's hear from Kim next. Kim, go ahead.
Kim, and I've been rocking. 6 years. We back up to the open space, so we do have quite a bit of wildlife as well. My question is, what takes precedence in the neighborhood, the county zoning or the HOA that is in place within your neighborhood with short-term rentals?
So, Michael or Stephen, I know that's something that you guys are aware of. Who would like to take that one? Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Actually, they both have to kind of exist together. The zoning regulations don't overrule the HOA or vice versa. So you really have to find a way to comply with both. Usually the most restrictive applies. And so if you have questions about the zoning side of things, we can help with that at our planning offices, and then working with the HOA to figure out the best way to comply with those. So that's kind of how it generally works here.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Roger, I think we had another question on the phone.
You bet. Let's go to Callian. You are live. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering what's the policy or the difference that differentiates between short-term rentals and long-term rentals, and where is that published?
It looks like Michael's getting that microphone for that answer. So currently in Douglas County, a short-term rental is viewed as any rental less than 30 days, and anything 30 days or longer would be considered a long-term rental. The way that the county interprets that currently is based on state law that requires any rental period less than 30 days, you've got to collect taxes on that. So it's viewed as lodging. And if lodging is not a specified use within a zone district, then it's not allowed in that zone district. All right, thanks, Michael. Roger, now we had one polling question so far, and I wonder if we might have an answer to that poll question.
You bet. We asked again, from strongly agree to strongly disagree, please rate your agreement with this statement. I should be allowed to rent my home for short-term use. 33% strongly agreed, 26% strongly disagreed, and 17% agreed, 16% were neutral, and 8% disagreed.
Very good. Well, thank you for collating that for us. Roger, I wonder if we might have our second and final polling question of the evening.
You bet. Let's ask that question now. Here it is. From strongly agree to strongly disagree, please rate your agreement with this statement. I think renting for short-term use should be allowed in my neighborhood. So press 1 if you strongly agree, press 2 if you agree, press 3 if you're neutral, press 4 if you disagree, and press 5 if you strongly disagree.
Roger, I'm probably not alone, but could you repeat the results of the first polling question?
You bet. I can do that in a second. I'll have to pull it up on the interface. So if we can come back to that, I'll be ready to answer that.
Great.
So, Commissioner Thomas, I think you had a couple questions ready to go.
I do. Thank you, Commissioner Teal. I would like to rent my home to traveling nurses. That would be longer than 30 days. What are the rules for that?
There are no special rules if the rental period is longer than 30 days.
Can you tell us what those are?
It would just be viewed as a normal rental.
To pin down a little bit, I think that's a question that comes up a lot. So if you have a rental that extends beyond 30 days, that would be considered a standard term for a rental agreement, anything beyond 30 days. What about an individual property owner that rents out their property all year long, but does it in each individual installment of maybe a term apiece? So like, 50 renters at 7 days apiece.
You'd really have to look at the terms of the individual agreements and what those are. And so if it's 57-day rentals, those are short term. Those would be considered short terms. And what the differentiation really becomes is the difference between the lodging use and then the residential use. And so if it's 30 days or more, then it is a residence of someone under our zoning at least. And so the normal regular residential regulations apply. You can have one family, and our definition of family is a group of people living together as a family housekeeping unit. So that can be one person or a whole family, parents, kids, and the whole 9 yards.
Well, my 3 kids live with me, and none of them do any cleaning, so I don't know if that counts as qualifies under our definitions, but we'll work on that. Roger, back to you. Or Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. I think that there's another phone call online, Roger.
There is. Let's hear from Matt next. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Great. Thank you. I wanted to start by saying, Commissioner Layden, I think you started off framing this conversation perfectly. We have to find a way to balance the needs of people that want to rent their homes with the safety and with the needs of the community. And hearing the various viewpoints tonight, I just wanted to echo, as an individual homeowner, not someone who has extra rental properties, but someone who lives in Douglas County and appreciates the fact that we are a conservative county by conservative government, smaller government, but we're also progressive in what we allow our citizens to do. That I really urge the commissioners to look at this and find a way to say yes, but also listen to the ways to say, what are the right rules that we need to put around this? And I think that's going to satisfy most of us. I have no problem with short-term rentals in my neighborhood, assuming we follow the right rules. And perhaps that's requiring going through services like VRBO or Airbnb, where they do vet the people that are renting the properties versus just someone doing it randomly without a background check on who's coming in. But I just want to put that out there as a citizen. I really appreciate the conversation, and I really think we have an opportunity to find a way to say yes to this opportunity, but put the right limited guardrails around it. So thank you.
Matt, thanks so much for that. I appreciate you ringing in. As just one commissioner, I tend to be more of a yes if rather than a no because. And if there are areas for consensus where we can reach a win-win, I tend to like those. It looks like we actually have some more questions in the room. A couple more questions. Hi.
I guess he'll talk. Okay. Yeah, we live in the far southwest corner of Douglas County on 30 acres. My grandfather built a home 70 years ago, and we long-term rented it for up till 12 years ago. And it was a mix. And yeah, it was not good long-term rentals. So we went to short-term rental and 12 years ago, and we paid all the taxes. We did everything the way you wanted us to.
It was allowed then, according to the county.
And then a few months ago, a neighbor just across the county line decided he needed to reduce the competition, I think. So he turned in a dozen of us in that area, and your people came out and shut us all down. And as of this point, we're now doing a 30-day rental. And I don't see what the the difference is. We're still going to have people coming and going the same amount of time. We tell our people when they show up what the fire dangers are, what the rules are, whether they can have fires, they can't have fires, whatever. In 12 years, we've never had a problem that I know of. Nobody's ever said anything. It seemed rather arbitrary that a competitor across the county line could turn us all in and reduce his competition in the area. And just over the hill from us are other people doing short-term rentals in Douglas County, and they have not been shut down. This process needs to be done fairly and equitably for all the people that are doing short-term rentals. So we're now faced with not being able to make a living off of this residence other than long-term, which is not near as good as short-term. And
Can I add?
yeah.
Okay, well, we are part of the community that was spoken about from the chief. Jim actually used to be on the training captain on that fire department. We find, as far as ATVs are concerned, our neighbors are much more disrespectful. We don't live in the subdivision, we live on the side. So we have razors going up and down behind our houses all the time, dirt bikes. They're the worst on the county road in front of our house. We are a thoroughfare for all the ATVs coming from Denver going up to the trails. We have reported fires of our neighbors who have had 5-foot flames, and they have nothing to do with the vacation rentals. So if we want to argue the fact that the rentals are noisier, and I understand there were some people there that built houses specifically for that reason, and we're saying, okay, 13 people can come. Well, that's ridiculous. 13 people cannot fit in a house and have it be a very good environment for anybody. But this was our retirement, and now we're probably going to have to go back to work at age 70 because we got caught up in the crossfire of something that was happening down the road. We have 35 acres. We have no neighbors that we're right on top of. We watch our people. We talk to our people on the phone. It's the owner's responsibility to make sure they know who they're renting to. And if they don't do them, then yeah, they shouldn't be allowed. But I think you guys could set things in place that would make it work for everybody. We want to keep our cabin, 80-year-old cabin, in good shape. It's a family thing, you know. His grandpa built it, and people who rented long-term would destroy it. So we have we're better able to maintain it and still have our family come up and still share it with other people. So thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that comment. That's really compelling to me as one commissioner, maybe to my colleagues as well. What are your names again?
James and Deborah Bruner.
Well, James and Deborah, I appreciate that. One thing that causes me some consternation, just to be candid with the public, is, you know, rules for me and not for thee, right? And so I think what I'm hearing you say is it has to be fair, and there has to be a measure of predictability. And you got to be able to use your property in a way that generates income. You don't want to send seniors back out into the workforce that are, yeah. I'll be your mic stand.
Okay. I just want to add one more thing, is that the thing that we have the hardest time with, they say to us, well, as long as you don't get caught or as long as you don't get turned in, then it's not a problem. So if they're going to shut people down, then we need to shut all of Douglas County down, because we know in Larkspur, in Franktown, there are vacation rentals everywhere. So, you know, we're just trying to survive until we kick it, you know.
Well, having a great life is a priority. I don't think we want to shut anybody down. Let's turn it to Commissioner Thomas.
Yes, thank you. We have an online question, Roger.
We do, from Penny. Penny asks, why do we need a new licensing process? Aren't there already nuisance laws? Wouldn't the owner be responsible for ensuring their tenants follow existing laws?
So the licensing process would give the county additional safeguards to put in place for these short-term rentals. Yes, there are other laws that are currently, you know, in place, but not all of them cover all situations. And obviously, you can't write laws to cover every situation. But with the licensing process, you can put more responsibilities on both the owner and the tenants, just to make sure that, you know, they're being nice neighbors and they're playing by the book. Some of the laws that are currently in place take longer to enforce than an actual ordinance would. So that's some of the reasons for having a licensing process.
Thank you, Michael, for that feedback. I think we have another online call. Roger?
We're going to go to the phone, actually, with Trudy. Trudy, go ahead.
Yes, I live in Highlands Ranch, and, you know, the meeting, I guess, pertains to unincorporated Douglas County. Can you tell me, Highlands Ranch, is this included in this meeting? Or is Highlands Ranch separate?
So Highlands Ranch is unincorporated Douglas County. So that is an area that's part of this discussion. So thank you for calling and clarifying that.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, I did send an email earlier, and the lady I spoke with, she assured me that she would print it out and give it to the commissioners. And the name is Trudy Frank.
Thank you, Ms. Frank.
Thank you for that, Ms. Frank. So it looks like we have an online question.
We do. And here is the question from Joshua. Owner-occupied is how it was intended. There is nothing more, just greed. I guess that's more of a question, or more of a statement.
Well, I'll answer from my perspective as just one, and maybe the others want to ring in, but that causes me to bristle a bit too. I think it's unfair to tell anybody in America that they're not allowed to be successful and to do well with their own private property rights. There are limitations, there's zoning for a reason, but to call somebody greedy, like our citizens here that are in their 70s and just want to make a sustainable way of life and income, I think is not something I would agree with. We have another phone question. Roger.
And this time it's Denise. Go ahead.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. This is Denise Hoganis. I just want to encourage the commissioners and the staff as they look to change or write policy to make sure that things are actually enforceable. I don't really have a stance on this either way, but I can tell you that my neighbor runs a short-term rental. Not that I care, but nothing's been done about it, and I'm not going to reach out and tattle on my neighbor because I don't really care. But my plea to the commissioners would be, please don't make policies that can't be enforced, and please make sure that whatever is written into policy is very clearly enforceable without forcing citizens to tattle. I think that for me, those are just some fundamentals to policy. And unless we want to continue to build more and more and more government, I think that people should be allowed to do what they want on their land within reason. So.
Well, thank you very much, Denise. I appreciate that. That's been kind of a central issue with me when it comes to folks who, unlike the Bruners, thank you. Unlike the Bruners, folks who have been bad actors, who have had neighbors, who have had problems, and what can be done to enforce has been a question if we are to move forward on that one. So I definitely appreciate, Denise, you bringing that issue up. I'm being told we have another phone call come in. Roger, another phone question, please.
Yes, sir. Here it is from Mary. Go ahead. You're live.
Thank you very much. What I have is not a question but a perspective, and that is I believe very strongly that we should not be in the commercializing R1 neighborhood. Zoning is a mechanism that communities have used for generations, so that when someone buys in a neighborhood, they have predictability. They know what they can do with their property, whether they can have a business on it or whether they cannot. And so I would encourage you very, very strongly to frame this in terms of zoning issues. And if you want to zone communities so that people can rent their property, then that needs to be clear so that everyone who buys into it knows what they can do and what they cannot do. It's a zoning issue. Those are the absolute basics of what urban planning is about. That's my comment.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Very much appreciate that. Roger, I'm going to break from the script here because this young lady has had her hand up several times. Ma'am, what would you like to tell us, or do you have a question?
I have a comment. I'm Barbara Martin Worley. We live in Perry Park. And I think the challenge for you guys is how do you take a county like this that's very, very diverse in its topography, the issues that we're dealing with. But my concern is because we had in our neighborhood. We just had this issue come up within our neighborhood. It was someone going through an Airbnb. My concern is are those investors in a property who don't live there? And so therefore, when you're renting out these properties, you have people who don't know the neighborhood. If something were to happen, and we're a close neighborhood because we went through the Hayman fire. Since that time, we know each other, we have phone numbers, we know how to get a hold of the neighborhood because obviously fire departments can't do this all on their own. So when you have an absentee owner and they're leasing out their home, there's no way to contact them in an emergency. They don't really know the dynamic that's happening in our community. One thing we're very proud of is that we're a nationally recognized Firewise community. So we're very on top of, we've got we had $1.5 million coming in just to mitigate. And that continues in our neighborhood because we deserved it. We showed that we want to be this kind of community. But I'm concerned if you don't live in the same community, it's like you don't have the desk clerk if something's happening. You don't have a number to get a hold of people if something is happening. And really, how invested are these owners going to be in those issues that are facing our community? And that's a big concern of mine, is those who are, and how they advertise on Airbnbs as well, because it was what we saw advertised was that this was, hey, open space, come here, wildlife galore. Well, we've had our problems with wildlife, so it just sounds irresponsible to me.
You bet. Well, thanks. Thanks for bringing that perspective. And we have heard from a couple of residents very concerned about investment, institutional investors basically coming through Douglas County, buying up a whole lot of properties and turning this into a cash business. That's something that we've had come up. That's something we've kind of had our eye on. I can tell you that for the advocacy I've received from here in the county, I haven't heard from big companies looking to come in and do that. I have heard from folks like our couple up here whom have a property. They are local. But I think that's a very important issue that we do need to consider, is what you brought up. And I, for one, am looking to address that as we move forward. I've got to turn it over to my colleague, Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. Roger, is there another online call?
There is. Alicia asks, is the license going to increase county revenue? Can you start that's her question. This was her second question. She was hoping we'd answer one. So there you go.
I'll start off by saying I have no plans to do that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would concur with that. The question is, you mean the county generating revenue from licensing? I don't think that is my intent on any level.
Yeah, that's never been my intent in considering this topic either.
Okay, and it looks like we do have a question from the phone. Roger?
Let's hear from Pamela next. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Pamela, and I just want to say that this call has been very educational, which I think that education is empowering to our community. And I originally had this question before I heard from everyone. But basically, I believe that, the thing for me is once you get into people's property rights, it's a slippery slope. So I just want to thank you all, commissioners. Please consider our property rights and consider that each community or HOA can stipulate their own rules. But I believe, as many of you do, that we should not have big government controlling this. So my question would be, is how can we keep us safe without big government?
Pamela, thank you for that question and that comment.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is I hope our legacy here in Douglas County is we do keep each other safe without necessarily being a big government. Yes, this room looks really nice, and this room is kind of big, but this is about as many people as we usually have in this room, and so I think that's a great question. I'm willing to take up that challenge as we work on this solution. Roger, it looks like Mickey's big hand says that we are unfortunately running out of time. Can you go ahead and wrap us up? I think we had that second polling question.
We do. Here's what we asked. We said from strongly agree to strongly disagree, please rate your agreement with this statement. I think renting for short-term use should be allowed in my neighborhood. 23% strongly agreed, 10% agreed, 6% were neutral, 14% disagreed, and 47% strongly disagreed. We are, as Commissioner Teal mentioned, we're about at the end of our time. Be sure to join us for future town halls. You can visit douglas.co.us/town hall to sign up to ensure you are notified. And before we conclude tonight's live town hall, let's go back and hear from your commissioners for some final comments. Commissioner Thomas, go ahead.
Thank you, Roger. I'd like to thank everybody for being in the room and everyone online. And so here's what we are grappling with as commissioners, because we heard several people today say, respect private property rights. And when I hear that, I wonder what side of the question are they on? Are they on the side of the question of, I own my house and I want to rent it out? Or are they on the other side where they say, I bought a house in a residential area and I want it to stay as a residential area, so please support my property rights? And so that is the question that we need to deal with. And I live in Highlands Ranch, which is a PDA plan development. And in order to change the plan development, we would have to send letters to 53,000 homes for them to be part of this discussion. And so that's just putting in perspective what this is going to take to get this to change. And we heard from somebody from Airbnb that in order to go through this process, it could take 2 years. So I just want everyone to understand that this is going to be a very thoughtful but long process to make sure we get it right. So thank you for being engaged.
Commissioner Teal, I think you're next.
Happily.
Or, well, go ahead.
Oh, I'll go ahead and take it. No problem. Well, first and foremost, thanks, everybody. I'll say it again. Thank you for coming out on this very cold February night. It's been really great to see the participation we've had in the room here tonight. And thank you, everybody who joined us online and who joined us on the phone and giving us your very thoughtful questions and actually your very thoughtful statements and sharing your views with us. I, for one, found it to be very interesting. I think when we talk about this question, I don't believe there's a black and a white side on this one. And I don't think we're going to have a black and white solution of either letting everything be a free-for-all or maintaining or locking down more than what we have done, what currently exists here in the county. So as Commissioner Thomas talked about, this is an extended analysis that we're undertaking. I can assure you we're not following a fad. If we were following a fad, we'd be 10 years too late, and my colleague, Commissioner Layden, would not have that. He's far more up on the fads in the world than I am. But the bottom line is this is something that we're taking a hard look at. We appreciate everybody's engagement, and please stay engaged. Please continue to share your thoughts, share your ideas as we move through this process. And thank you so much for coming this evening.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Teal, and I'll round us out. One thing that never goes out of style is the freedom of our citizens in honoring private property rights. But no doubt, we heard some really interesting comments about potential issues with regard to public safety, fire issues, what happens when there are absentee owners, ATV noise, traffic. We also heard about the potential for people like the Bremers to continue generating an income and using their property as they see fit without causing harm to others. And we also heard about the ability for people to afford homes if they are able to rent them out on some level. But I couldn't agree more, Commissioner Teal. A lot more work needs to be done, but I do sense a win-win. I sense an area of balance where, again, just to come full circle on my comments from the beginning, it is a balancing between ensuring that private property rights are honored, but that the rights and the quiet enjoyment of other properties are also not impaired. But I am really thankful for everybody that joined us here in person and online. Thank you, everyone, for being here. God bless and have a wonderful night.
On behalf of Douglas County, thank you for joining us this evening. If we didn't get to your question tonight, we invite you to submit any questions at any time online at douglas.co.us/citizen connect. We hope you will join us again for a future telephone town hall, and good night.